farm at the moment, we're about 130 acres in total. Things have moved on quite a bit from the open day. We've learned a lot more as we go along with the help of yourselves and other people that we work with. Cows are really doing well with it. We were looking at a new milking parlour, and he came back one day from his travels with his clipping and said, "Dad, I think we need to look at robots." So with yourselves, he went out to Holland, and along with the team at Lely, we probably spent 2 years trying to get it to work into the system that we had here, because there's a few parameters that we wanted to work with. The sort of cows that we have, we wanted a straw pen, we wanted to try and utilise as much of the building as possible. We ended up changing it, I think, twice in the process of the build, but we've gone with this big open shed, as you can see now, and yes, it was a big investment, but it really has paid dividends to us. The air quality in here in the cows, just out behind us is the Mourne Mountains, and the cold wind comes in across there in the winter time, which we have to block up, but in the summertime there's a lovely continuous breeze coming through the cows.
In here I can't see any cobwebs at all, so
it's too high, but
obviously,
apart from that, the air quality through here is fantastic,
quite open
for the cows. We've learned a lot from our open day. I think, what were we at our open day in? Around 21 litres or something, I think we were averaging.
Yeah.
Last week we had 26 and a half.
Yeah.
There were 8 cows over 40 litres the other day, with a top of 48.8, and we've never had that sort of production, or couldn't get that sort of production from them, and just a normal twice a day milking. We had hoped that we would get sort of probably to 120 cows. We were up at 114, I think it was, and overflowed the milk tank. So
not a bad problem to have.
So that actually provided us with an opportunity with being able to sell a batch of cows to bring it down. I think there's 102 going through at the moment. I think probably 110, as many as we'll be able to cope at. But if we can sit at 25, 26 litres, 365 days a year, that'll put us into cows somewhere over 7,500 litres, which for Jerseys is phenomenal. It hit the 49.9 kilos. Last week she hit 48.8, and she sits routinely in the mid 40s. I think she's projected to about 10,500 kilos for us. Two cows in front of us here are actually two cows that are over consistently over 40 litres. This 71 cow is the cow that's 150 days in milk, 90 days pregnant to sex semen, and projected about 9,500 litres at 6% fat and 4% protein.
So this is the sort of cow you want.
That's the role model cow.
That's the template.
From a production point of view, yeah, we'd really like.
Shape and very tight udder, and what age is that cow?
She's on her second lactation. She is, yeah, she's on her second.
That's what this rye was in a year last year.
So the rye, what are you doing with that then? He's putting it down and
it goes in
silent,
or cropped into the silo.
Yeah, silent. And how do you find that as part of your feed ration?
Well, look, it's working well. It's probably about, during the winter, is about 25% of the whole crop rye goes into the diet and 75% silage. So it seems to work well for us. Previously, I suppose we were using whole crop wheat, but the rye probably comes off a little bit earlier, and it probably slightly higher yielding as well. So I think so. So the robots, we have a 21-day sort of startup program on the robots to increase the feed levels as they go in. The TMR that they're fed is targeted. We use the TMR and 2 base kilos in the robots, and that's targeted for about 18 to 20 litres. The cows then are fed 0.55 kilos per litre above that target of 20 litres. So that's the basis of the diet. The robots, we use a 16% nut in the robots for the high yielding or for the any cows up to about 200 days are on that 16% nut. After 200 days, then we have the ability to feed a second type of concentrate. So we move those 200 day plus cows onto an 18% nut. And that's just, and we reduce the feed rate a little bit. We take it down to about 0.45. And that's just to make those later lactation cows work a bit harder, stops them putting on too much condition. Various farms, but Ashley and the Potterswalls herd here have been one of those farms for the last sort of 12, 13 years. And what we would prefer to see is take the protein out early lactation. It tends to drive their intakes, so we get better forage intakes at that point. And that keeps what we'll find is we don't get as high a peak yield, but we get a much flatter production curve. So those animals, and there's probably animals in here doing over 40 litres, they'll hold that milk yield a lot longer during lactation. So you lose a little bit at peak, but you'll gain it later on in lactation.
Yeah. Sometimes, and I've picked this up myself, people go into with the idea of milking robots to walk away and leave cows. It just doesn't happen like that. And I suppose the phrase I've used, the one thing it does is free you up from the routine of milking. With us working, or even in a farm situation where there's other jobs going on, you don't have to be here at 5 o'clock to press the button at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. It frees you up from the routine of having to be there to do that. It also allows in the morning, you don't have to be out at 5 to push the button with it. But you have to spend time, you actually spend more time in with the cows and among the cows, because you're not actually gathering them up to put them through a parlour. Yeah. You're spending time going through the cows. You do have to discipline yourself if there is something that a cow needs attention to. You have to go and get that cow, whereas if you had a cow with a touch on that side, you automatically tube them going through a parlour. You have to put them into the training area, or you have to physically do that. But having said that, we have noticed a significant reduction in that as well, just with the hygiene, the disinfecting between each milking with the robot system. That thankfully we didn't have a lot of it, but it has even with us it has dropped off significantly. So it has. So